Hey everybody, it's Aluna Michaels, Esoteric Astrologer. I want to talk to you about the events of April 2023. And like I always want to thank you to all the guys at the Know Thyself podcast. Thank you very much for promoting me and being awesome yourselves. And okay, so let's see. Let's talk about the Mercury retrograde first. Which everyone gets anxious about, and it's okay, it's okay. So Mercury is going to go retrograde in Taurus. Now that will be, I'm making this video on the 5th of April, but it will go retrograde on the 21st of April, and it will stay retrograde until May 14th. Now it's going to go retrograde at 15 degrees and goes back to like 6 degrees. Those of you who follow that sort of thing, 6 degrees of Taurus. And then we say, okay, when is it going to be 6 degrees of Taurus before it goes retrograde? That's called the pre-retrograde. Sometimes they call that the shadow, Mercury, the umbrella period, all these sort of terms. And that's basically Friday, the 7th. So we're going to go into this Mercury retrograde window. And I have found over the years that people have a harder time with the pre-retrograde than the actual retrograde, which is strange. I still don't quite understand that. But, I do like to promote Mercury retrograde as a time when it's a natural rhythm of internal communication, tying up loose ends in your life. If there's external, it's often tying up loose ends. It's hard to get things started, or things seem weird when you start them sometimes during Mercury retrograde. But it's a really good time to be going within to reassess, if you're listening to yourself, if you're tuned into your intuition or not. What is your higher self saying, your inner world, this kind of a thing. Or just trying to find time to relax. I know in our society, it's just like everything has to always be going. And it's like, but the rhythm of the solar system there, especially with Mercury, which is our nervous system and communication and just getting things done in the day, boom, boom, boom. It goes backwards from our point of view of the Earth to have that rest period of sorts. Not that you don't do anything for the 3 weeks of Mercury retrograde, but just to be more assessing where you're going, what you're doing, why am I doing this? Is this what I'm going to be doing anymore? How can I do it differently? So there's the assessment time is really what Mercury retrograde's about. And even just resting more, get in touch with people you haven't gotten in touch with. It's really great for Mercury retrograde too. This kind of a thing. So reminding yourself what kind of meaning in your life is, or at least on these smaller, it doesn't have to be a big picture thing all the time, but just kind of touching that base with yourself, So, but the pre-retrograde, a lot of times people have struggles there, and they think, well, it's not Mercury retrograde yet. Why am I having a struggle? So just know that's where we're going in here the next few days. We're also having a full moon today, which is interesting on the 5th. Because a full moon is always the sun opposes the moon, right? That's the full moon. So sun in Aries, moon in Libra. But also Chiron, which isn't a planet. I think it's a comet that got caught in our solar system. So we have the sun and moon, and then we have Chiron and Jupiter right there. Now the Jupiter is great. Jupiter's really fun, but it does magnify things. So it can magnify emotion. So especially with relationships, because of the Libra moon, there's a lot of ways that oppositions, when the sun opposes the moon, you're getting a Libra energy there with the opposition. Because Libra represents, anyways, it's the first sign that has an opposing sign. Long story. Anyways, take my word for it. So there's that tension between people that can happen with a full moon, or people just feel overloaded or something. Don't hear this about Libras being overloaded, but it has to do with the creative tension of an opposition. And so when Jupiter's there, it makes things bigger, and sometimes bigger isn't better, and so watching out for drawing these big conclusions or wanting to make some sort of statement, it can be Aries, and it's like, well, wait a minute. And then that Chiron's there too, which on one level can be wisdom, but it can also be feeling wounded. So like, oh, I'm really going to tell them, because the Jupiter and then the full moon and all of this. So it's like, if there's any inclination like that for manifestos and this sort of thing, it's like, let me just like kind of sit with it a little bit, especially with the Mercury retrograde. And you go, why would I, going into the retrograde window, we were talking about, why would I do that? Why did I say that? Maybe I was misunderstanding things, or there's a different way to approach it, or the person corrects themselves, or things sort of de-escalate and it seems like there's a better solution. So just kind of watching out for that. Just to follow the track with the moon, we're going to have an eclipse on April 19th. And this one's interesting because it's the new moon, right? So we got the sun and moon. They're actually going to be in Aries, but right on the edge of Taurus. And the planet Pluto, which we will talk about because Pluto changed signs, the sun and moon will be squaring Pluto. So, new moons can be really great, but when it's happening, let me just make sure it is happening at 29. Well, got it at 0. Okay. All right, fair enough. Sorry, I was looking at March instead of April. No, the new moon is at 29. So when we have that eclipse at the 29th degree of any sign, so we have 29 for the sun and 29 for the moon, there's a lot of energy on the 29th degree. There's 30 degrees of each sign, but 0 is the first degree, so 29 is the final degree. And there's a lot of kind of like importance around it. And again, it's this fueled energy thing, and kind of like that full moon, right? And so we get into the new moon, and it's an eclipse, which is more intense anyway. And and then it's squaring Pluto. And Pluto can have that, so the challenging angle to Pluto, where Pluto's about personal power. And again, like, they're not doing this, and I'm going to say that, and all. It's like, and they may need to hear that, and you may need to do that, but it's in that moment, it could be too strong or cause too much repercussions. There's some way that there's a more graceful way to do things, which I'm going to go into with some other stuff in the solar system that's happening. And mostly it has to do with this Mercury retrograde. When Mercury does go retrograde, it's right near the planet Uranus, which can be, Mercury's a thinking and Uranus is very inventive, right? So it's brand new ideas. So it could be, it could be like revelations, And then when Mercury is in that window period of time, if it's going to go direct at 6 degrees of Taurus, and we say, okay, here it is 6 degrees of Taurus here, pretty much the way Saturn's moving fairly slowly, it's making a supportive angle called a sextile, which is saying, okay, I have more balanced resources. I'm thinking more balanced. Mercury retrograde itself can be, again, the self-reflective capacity. And the Saturn is slower thinking. It's more thought out. It sees the implications of the future thing. And then or it just even gets you to calm down. So it can help that it's there along with this full moon. And then going into the new moon, and then sometimes because of that Mercury about to go retrograde, sitting there kind of around the time of that eclipse, that can just be a little feisty too, even though it's near Uranus, which is great ideas. It's all sort of waiting a little bit, which could be through mid-May, when the Mercury's direct, when Mercury also connects with that Saturn again. It's like, oh, wait, what was that about? Or I could have done it this way and still told them what I need to tell them or make those choices or whatever. When we're talking about inner stuff, that can also be what's going on in terms of like, I'm going to tell them, it's this part of you that if you keep bungling things, you're up against a part of yourself or negative voices in your head, then that can be, that you're having the energy to push against that stuff in yourself. And that can be really helpful to have the way the full moon is, the new moon is, and even the eclipse, I should say, too, with the new moon. And with the Mercury retrograde, it's like, but you might see, even if you're fighting in yourself, that you maybe don't need to push as hard as you think up against it. It could be just not engaging in that part of yourself, or just kind of ignoring it, not ignoring it like you're saying it isn't happening, but you might find that it kind of goes away if you don't try to smash back at it. You don't listen to it, but it just sort of fades easier than you think, or you're just not in as dire of situation as you think you are. So that could be this kind of beauty around all of this stuff, But the other thing with all of this can be courage to be trying new things or meeting new people, or even if it's looking at your talents, if you want a new job, or looking at yourself differently about your spiritual practice or something. Like there's more good in here than you think, and you could the trying new things and pushing beyond your perceived limits. That can also be something where you're being bold and um, trying these, you know, again, kind of going up against yourself. But it might be that, oh, that's easier to, I have that talent. That wasn't so hard to make a splash with this or to meet this person or whatever. So don't sell yourself short either. So, but it's just that balance about how much willpower to use. So again, it's like you've got the force in you if you want to do something bold and make a great move that sort of empowers you in a positive way. But if you're resisting somebody, you don't need to push as hard. And seeing that they're maybe not as resistant as you thought, they're just actually more open to you, or there was an opening that was created and all that. So it's like, kind of don't waste a lot of your energy flailing or like I'm building it up and I'm going to do it. And it's like, oh, that wasn't too bad. They listened to me, or I was able to, ask that person out on a date or something. So it's kind of an interesting time to really be looking at the meditation and where are these real fears that are talking to you, or is it just kind of old tapes or something? And partly with going within, touching base with yourself, you can realize, oh, I'm always thinking this way when I go for a job or ask someone to date or have to bring something up to somebody. And it's like, oh, like maybe this is just kind of an old story and I can just kind of proceed normally, but proceed. So that's that balance. So hopefully I'm not saying two different things here, but I'm trying to say there's this balance of how you're acting, but not acting too strong, but not, not missing out the opportunity either. And all of that is sort of happening and unfolding over the next 6 weeks when we go into the end of the Mercury retrograde in the middle of May. Another cool thing now, Mars, yay, finally went into Cancer after being in Gemini forever. And so now here we are in Cancer, and Mars is trining Saturn. And that also, it's kind of more in the beginning of the month that's happening, but it's this idea that you have faith, which is those water signs, especially Saturn being in Pisces, but that there's like a faith behind the action, Mars to that Saturn in Pisces, or meaning behind it, and that you don't feel so raw because that Mars being in Gemini for so long really frazzled a lot of people's nerves. So something about following your heart, continuing to go forward, that also is kind of putting a gentler frame around all of this, So that's also really great to take advantage of that, being around there and just trusting your heart, and knowing what is your fear and then what's your true passion and how you want to be and living up to your own internal standards kind of a thing. But so there's like a sense of a gentle guide in all of the chaos, if there's any chaos, kind of looking for that, okay, I got this, or, so I was happy to see that was going on too. Okay, so, and let's see other things. Well, that should be good for now. Pluto, of course, is still going to be in Aquarius for a few more months before it backs up into Capricorn. And people were feeling kind of intense about Mars changing signs and the Pluto, because Pluto's like Mars's big brother. But now, okay, we're in Aquarius, and again, that has a lot to do with your own inner voice. And, when I'm thinking about talking about meditation or tapping into your inner voice, trying all different types of things. If it's, I love dancing, and it doesn't have to be like spiritual dancing. It could be like, just dancing. This is getting me in touch with who I am, or, whatever your passion is that makes you feel in tune with your real self, and it could be making art, it could be just watching nature, being present to whatever birds and stuff like that. Doesn't have to be a prescribed type of, this is meditation. It's what is making you feel your own unique way to feel attuned internally. And with Aquarius, it's that unique way to do it. So following your heart in that way too, and not forcing yourself to do something that just never seems to yield any result. It makes you feel, this isn't the way I do things. It could be moving meditations, walking, and but just being able to have that sense that this is what works for me, and be honest with yourself about what does work for you and what doesn't. That can be part of a bigger picture of Pluto being in Aquarius, about really people representing and recognizing and respecting everyone's individuality, and how that's Aquarius's thing about how does that all work? How are we all individuals that our needs are sometimes clashing, sometimes blending, and but that's the mystery that Pluto and Aquarius will work over the next 30 years. But in the meantime, with yourself saying, when I feel tuned in, this is how I do it, and it might be a basic regular type meditation, or it might change. That's another thing. Like today, I don't want to do a sitting meditation. I want to do moving, or I want to play with my dogs and just feel like natural and stuff. So allowing that space for that too. Okay, I think it went on a little too long. If you want a session from me, let me know. 248-583-1663. My number is below the YouTube if you're watching YouTube. Or send me an email, aluna@alunamichaels.com, or just go to alunamichaels.com. Get in touch with me that way. And I will see you later, and bye-bye for now.